This is my third time trying to film this. So, at the end of my last video, I talked about how I was going to talk about kin race discourse. And so now I'm gonna do that. Kin race discourse is kind of a thing that's come from the last couple of years, so it's pretty new, but I think it's pretty widespread, the whole don't kin outside your race / ability, or don't follow me if you kin outside your race / ability being in a lot of people's before you follow, stuff like that. So I just kind of wanted to give my opinion on it with some like facts, information put in there. This isn't gonna be like a video essay per se or anything like that. Kind of wanted to make something a little less super intensive because the last one was super intensive and took up like a lot of time and it was hard, and I think it would be most productive to start up by talking about just like generally what my opinion is on that. My main opinion with the whole kin race discourse thing is that I literally don't care about it. I don't care what race you are, if you're kidding whatever character. It means nothing to me. But if you don't agree, just like keep on watching. Maybe you'll learn something about this that you didn't know before. See a perspective that you didn't see before. I don't know. A part of the reason why I don't really fuck with kin race discourse is because of its origins. I think this was in, let me check. Okay. The whole thing like started in 2014. There was like a group of cisgender white women who were pretending to be transgender Japanese teenage girls on Tumblr, and they had some kin types, and what they would do to able to exert like control and ownership over these kin types was that they created a thing basically that you can't kin outside of your race, and they were able to push this through the kind of social justice, social capital that you get as a person of color talking about issues about people of color. And they were able to enforce this through doxing and call-out posts to anybody who was kidding outside of their race. Before this wasn't really in like an actual issue, but yeah. Oh, I'm not sure if I mentioned what this group is called, but they call themselves the Yandere Bitch Club. Bad. I forgot to mention they also had like a bunch of scandals, you know, like in 2014, that whole like big trend of where people would pretend to have dissociative identity disorder and abuse their friends and then be like, it wasn't me, my alter did it. And then like months later they'd have like a huge call out post or something. So yeah, that whole thing was going on. Essentially, it's been kind of removed from its context and parroted throughout kin communities on Tumblr. It's become this huge thing, and nobody really knows that it came from like a group of white women who are race faking and pretending to be trans online. Ugh. So it's in itself, it's kind of fucked up because it's essentially just these people wanting to claim ownership over their kins and using social justice to make sure that nobody else could be that kin, which will come up later in what I'm going to be talking about. And this is kind of like spread to people talking about how you also can't kin outside of your ability. Like if a character is disabled or has a mental illness, you also have to be that kind of disabled or that kind of mentally ill to be able to kin them, which is weird, but that is also a thing that has happened. I guess I can kind of like, my main thing is that I don't care like who you're kin with, as long as you like aren't trying to pretend, like you're not trying to say that because you're kin with like say a black character that like you can speak over black people in this life. Like, it's not how it works. Obviously, you're not a black person in this life. You can't speak for black people. To kind of like split up into the different factions of kin experiences, how I feel is that if you're like choosing your kin, like say that you're a coping kin or you're a psychological kin or something like that, the whole like don't kin outside of your race, like it implies that you can choose your kins in the first place, and so that it only really counts for psychological kin. And again, like I don't have a problem with that. Like a character's race is not the entirety of their character. That's not the only reason why you can relate to a character. That's ridiculous to say so. Characters are relatable for every single part of the character that is represented. Yeah, I don't really find a problem with that. I mean, if identifying so closely with the character helps you, or you just want to do that, like that's fine. Like it's not like just simply having like any kind of relationship to a character of color or in anything of color is not inherently bad. And I think it's very regressive and harmful to insinuate that that is true. And when it comes to spiritual kin, it's very strange because people don't really make the distinction or even try to explain like spiritual kin can't choose their kins in the first place, so how is this even supposed to work for them? Some people don't care. Some people like will continue to adamantly say that you can choose your kins or something like that, which I think just kind of boils down to people not believing in spiritual kin or something like that, or maybe just not caring, or thinking that it's like a loophole for racist kitties to get through or something like that, which it is not. But yeah, with that, just like it really doesn't apply. Nobody chooses it, so they can't like choose which race their kin is going to be in the first place. You can't apply these kinds of social structures that exist because of our society to something that is not inherently connected to society or societal structures. Because like reincarnation does not reincarnate the color of your skin and all the societal baggage that comes with that. It like your race doesn't carry over each time. That's not how it works. So it's just very silly to me to kind of try to apply this kind of like arbitrary rule to something that is like so removed from that. The way that this like kind of like rule, quote unquote, is like taken so seriously is very strange to me because of its like as its origin. Some people may try and say, well yeah, it came from that, but like it's inherently right or something like that. It's not, because it's coming from these like white people who are race faking, and so like their reasoning doesn't even make sense because it was flawed and fake from the beginning. Because the reason why they were doing this was because they wanted to be the only people who could be kin with a certain character. They didn't want any doubles, or they wanted the least amount of doubles possible, essentially. I connect that as well to the people of color that I see who believe in and try to enforce this rule. Like, I don't know if it's controversial or something like that to say, but I really do feel like it's just them appropriating this rule and then using it for their own purposes to kind of like to lay claim to like a character who they may be kin with or not kin with, a character that they relate to strongly because of race reasons. Like to say like maybe like Black Panther or Luke Cage, very strongly like racially coded characters. And by racially coded, I mean like race is a big part of their stories and just who they are as people, and try to like shut out what they would see as kind of like white people encroaching or like non-black people encroaching on something that belongs to them in a sense. And while I understand that, I don't think that the answer, there is an answer to this kind of emotion, I don't think that is productive or necessary to be kind of like creating this fake construct of like social justice in that kind of space by saying you can't be kin with people of color because it makes me uncomfortable. I don't like it. I feel like you can't relate to this character like I can, so you can't be kin with this character. Like, trying to apply social justice to something that is largely not really social justice is harmful. Don't try and put how you feel and attach different like social things that are kind of related to how you feel, and then try and like create like a rule or like a rhetoric from that. Like, it's shaky and it's dangerous. Like, you can't just be like, well, this makes me feel bad, so it must be like morally or socially wrong, right? No, it doesn't work that way. Every single different person of color has a different opinion. Like, we're not like a monolith, even within our different ethnicities. It's like, so like me sitting here and saying, like, giving my opinion, like another, like a black person or a different person of color or somebody other ethnically marginalized might be like, I don't agree with that, and like that's just gonna happen. So it's difficult because I feel like people act as if this rule is like something that was enacted by and enforced by people of color or something like that. And it's strange because a lot of the people that I see like pushing this or like trying to enforce this are white people, which I feel is like, it's very much like a white person trying to like get like woke points by doing something that they saw a person of color say that they should do, and there's not really any like real thought behind it or like anything important, and it's just kind of like, ugh. And, like, here or there you'll see like people of color who are like trying to like say this about like a certain character or something like that, and it's just, it's very broken. Like, to go in further into how the logistics of this like don't make sense and are not black and white, it's like, think about how some people will say white people can't be kin outside of their race, and some people will say nobody can be kin outside of their race. I've seen like Asian people who kin characters who will say because there are Asian, any kind of Asian, they can kin any kind of Asian. So you could see like maybe like a Japanese person like kinning a Korean person. But if you think about like, you can't kin outside of your race, if you think about that in the structure of like, you are privileged, so you can't kin with an underprivileged or marginalized character, you would think about how like there are interactions within races of privilege. You could say to this person who's like, well, I'm Asian, so I can kin any of these Asian characters. You can say, well, no, you're Japanese, so you can't kin, say, Korean or Chinese people because of Japanese imperialism. And it becomes like further and further really when you start looking at all the different ethnicities within each country and how different ethnicities are privileged or have enacted violence in different ethnicities. And then you also have to think about the fact that you don't always know the ethnicity of these characters specifically. And then it just becomes like, how far are you willing to go? Like, how specific does it need to be woke enough? Like, and even more like this whole like, you can only kin with characters within your race. It's strange because it feels very white centric, because there's so many white characters. Like, you could very much, like, it would make sense if you're like, well, don't kin this character, like, you can be, like, there's so many other different characters you can be. But like, for a person of color, that is not true. There's not that many, like, say, Native characters. There aren't that many Black characters. And if you want to be that person who gets very into it and very specific, there aren't that many, say, Filipino characters. It's a lot. Like, it doesn't make sense when you start like breaking it down, essentially. Like, it just becomes like very, what's the word? Unnecessary. And that's kind of like the whole thing that I feel with this. I feel like it's unnecessary. It does not actually matter. And I feel like people who take up all their time like talking about like things like this, like Kinney discourse, Kinney race discourse or whatever, like, it's a waste of time, in my opinion. Like, as a black person, like, I don't care, like, you, like, bullying this other white kid online because he kins, like, I don't know, Miles Morales or something, like, that doesn't help me. Like, I don't care. Like, if this kid isn't doing anything and isn't, like, saying I can say the N-word because I'm Miles, like, how is this helping me? Like, can you, like, go to a protest or do something real and actually important and relevant? Like, people are dying. That's how I feel. I just feel like it's, like, this kind of, like, useless fake activism on Tumblr that is actually just people bullying each other because they want to be woke, or because, look, I don't want to be the person who's, like, because that is so, like, stupid and contrived. Like, I hate that. Like, go outside saying, like, it sucks, but that's really, like, I can't think of, like, any other way to, like, to boil down, like, not, like, go outside in, like, the way that it's kind of framed on Tumblr, but, like, go outside in, like, the sense that please, like, actually concern yourself with, like, actual important issues rather than this non-issue. Like, there are a lot of things. We live in a society. There are people in the world. Do something productive rather than this. I can't really boil it down to anything other than the fact that I feel like it's very much a non-issue and people are being wild and unnecessary for selfish reasons that have nothing to do with social justice and actuality. And, like, to anybody who does, like, kin outside of their race, like, honestly, like, you're fine. Like, just don't. Just, like, be mindful. It's not rocket science, and we really didn't have to make it such a huge thing. Also, before I, like, close out and all that stuff, I want to touch on the whole, like, ability thing. Same thing, same opinion. Like, just be mindful. And also, again, with the whole kind of, like, getting super specific thing, like, the same kind of, like, well, I'm disabled, I can a disabled character, but you're not the right kind of disabled, so you can't. Or, like, you're not this very specific kind of disabled, so you can't. Or, like, maybe this disability doesn't actually exist, but, like, your disability isn't close enough for you to kin that character. I don't know. It's really, it's crap, so, I mean, it doesn't make sense, so, like, why am I trying to make sense of it anyway? But, yeah, I think that's all I have to say for the most part. Please tell me how you feel about the subject, or if you've had any, like, experiences running with kin race drama or other stuff like that in the comments. If you disagree, tell me why. Like, subscribe if you want to. I'm going to try and make some more videos about kin stuff. I would love to see any suggestions that you have about things I should talk about. I'm also going to be making other probably strange videos, but I mean, it really do be like that for me specifically. So yes, thank you for watching. This take had better be good enough for me, because I really don't want to do it again, because I've been talking about this subject at length for a while. So yeah, if it sucks, don't tell me, because I will never film it again. Alright, I'm gone.